You are not a prisoner of your past. You are a slave only to your reactions. Freedom, as Marcus Aurelius taught, is not granted, it is earned. It doesn't come from status or wealth, but from self-command. The moment you stop needing life to go your way is the moment life begins to obey you. Stoicism is not apathy. It's armor. It's the ability to walk through chaos untouched. When your peace comes from within, no force on earth can take it from you. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully. You think you are free, but you are not. You think you control your life, but you are mistaken. Every angry word that escapes your lips, every anxious thought that steals your sleep, every moment of despair that clouds your judgment, these are not signs of your humanity. They are signs of your slavery. I am Marcus Aurelius. I ruled an empire that stretched from Britain to the Euphrates. I commanded legions. I held the power of life and death over millions. Yet I tell you this truth, the greatest conquest is not of lands or peoples, but of your own reactions. You wake each morning, and the world immediately begins its assault. Traffic delays you. Colleagues disappoint you. News disturbs you. Weather frustrates you, and with each event, you surrender a piece of your freedom. You hand over your peace to circumstances you cannot control. But here's what most people don't understand. Between every stimulus and your response lies a space. In that space lies your power. In that space lies your freedom. The fool reacts. Instantly, the wise man chooses deliberately. Consider the insult hurled at you yesterday. Did it wound you? Did it steal hours of your thoughts? If so, you gave that person power over your mind. You made yourself their slave. The insult itself has no power. Only your reaction gives it life. I learned this lesson not in philosophy halls, but on battlefields. When enemy arrows flew toward my soldiers, those who panicked died first. Those who remained calm, who chose their response rather than surrendering to fear, lived to fight another day. Life is no different. Every day is a battlefield where your reactions determine victory or defeat. Freedom begins where reaction ends. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you have a choice. React with rage and become their prisoner, or observe the event with detachment and remain free. When failure strikes your plans, you can crumble under disappointment or adapt with grace. The event remains the same. Your freedom depends entirely on your response. This is not about suppressing emotion. This is about commanding it. The river does not fight the rock. It flows around it. Be like the river. Let obstacles shape your path without disturbing your flow. Practice this discipline daily. When frustration rises, pause. When fear whispers, breathe. When anger demands action, wait. In these moments of pause, you reclaim your sovereignty. You remember that you are the emperor of your inner kingdom, regardless of what chaos surrounds you. The slave believes his freedom depends on his circumstances changing. The free man knows his freedom depends on his responses remaining under his command. Which will you choose to be? Your peace is not at the mercy of your boss, your spouse, your bank account, or your health. These things may influence your comfort, but they cannot touch your freedom unless you allow it. The moment you stop needing the world to behave according to your preferences is the moment you become truly free. But let me ask you this. Are you ready to stop being a victim of your own reactions? Are you prepared to claim the freedom that no one can grant you and no one can take away? The choice, as always, is yours. Choose wisely. Choose freedom. Your mind is either your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy. There is no middle ground. Every thought you allow to take root either strengthens your freedom or tightens your chains. The undisciplined mind is like a ship. Without a captain, it drifts wherever the wind takes it, crashes on every reef, and never reaches its destination. I have seen grown men reduced to children by their own thoughts. Senators who commanded respect in the forum, but trembled at imagined catastrophes in their private chambers. Generals who faced barbarian hordes with courage, but surrendered to anxiety about tomorrow's uncertainties. They controlled armies, but could not control their minds. You cannot command the storms of life. Rain will fall when it chooses. Markets will rise and crash according to forces beyond your influence. People will act according to their nature, not your wishes. Wars will be fought, plagues will spread, empires will fall. These are the movements of the world, and they bow to no man's will. But you can command the vessel you sail in, your thoughts. This is your domain. This is your empire. Guard it more carefully than any treasure, for it determines whether you sail toward wisdom or drift toward destruction. Most people live as prisoners of their own mental habits. They wake with yesterday's worries still echoing. They replay past conversations, searching for different outcomes that will never come. They rehearse future disasters that may never arrive. Their minds have become courts where they are both judge and defendant, prosecutor and victim. Here's what most people don't understand about mental discipline. Your thoughts are not facts. They are events. Like clouds passing through the sky, they appear, demand attention, and dissolve. You are not required to believe every thought that enters your mind. You are not obligated to follow every mental path that opens before you. When worry arrives uninvited, observe it like a scientist studying a specimen. Where did this thought originate? What fear feeds it? What would happen if you simply let it pass without engagement? The worried thought loses its power when it loses your attention. Starve it of your focus and watch it fade. The disciplined mind is like a well-trained guard at the palace gates. Not every visitor deserves entry. Not every thought merits consideration. Let the worthy thoughts enter, those that serve your purposes, align with your values, and strengthen your character. Deny access to the rest. Practice this daily discipline. Each morning, before the world begins its assault on your attention, sit in silence. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Notice which ones serve you and which ones enslave you. This is not meditation for peace. This is training for war. You are preparing your mind for the battles it will face. When doubt whispers that you cannot achieve your goals, remind yourself that doubt is just another visitor seeking entry. You can acknowledge its presence without granting it residence. When fear suggests that disaster awaits around every corner, recognize fear as the voice of imagination run wild, not prophecy revealed. The weak mind believes whatever it thinks. The strong mind chooses what to think. Which are you cultivating? Control your thoughts, or they will control you. Feed your mind wisdom, or it will feast on worry. Direct your mental energy toward what serves your highest purpose, or it will scatter toward whatever demands the loudest attention. But let me ask you this. What thoughts have you been allowing to rent space in your mind without paying their worth? What mental habits have you been tolerating that serve no purpose except to disturb your peace? The mind you have tomorrow begins with the thoughts you choose today. Choose thoughts worthy of the person you wish to become. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Learn this distinction, and you learn the secret of endurance. Pain arrives uninvited, through loss, through failure, through the simple act of being human in a world that cares nothing for your comfort. But suffering? Suffering is the story you tell yourself about that pain. I have felt pain that would break lesser men. I watched plague consume my empire. I lost children to death's cold embrace. I endured betrayal from those I trusted most. I felt my body weaken while my responsibilities only grew heavier. Yet I learned something that changed everything. Pain itself is not the enemy. Your attachment to how things should be, that is what transforms pain into suffering. The untrained mind meets pain with resistance. It fights what has already happened. It argues with reality. It demands that the world apologize for its cruelties. This resistance is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. You only exhaust yourself while the river continues its course. But here's what most people don't understand about pain. It carries within it the seeds of wisdom. Every wound teaches if you are willing to learn. Every loss reveals what truly matters. Every failure shows you what needs strengthening. Pain is not punishment. It is instruction. When your heart breaks, it breaks open. When your plans crumble, space is created for better ones. When your illusions shatter, truth finally has room to enter. The man who has never known pain has never known growth. Comfort creates weak men. Adversity creates strong ones. Your attachment to how life should unfold, this is what multiplies your suffering. You had expectations about your career, your relationships, your health, your future. Life disappointed these expectations, and now you suffer not just from what happened, but from the gap between what happened and what you demanded should happen. Release the illusion that life owes you anything. Life owes you nothing. It promised you nothing. It guaranteed you nothing except the opportunity to respond with dignity to whatever comes. When you stop expecting life to conform to your desires, you stop being disappointed by its refusal to do so. This does not mean becoming passive. This does not mean accepting injustice or surrendering your goals. This means engaging fully with reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Fight for what matters, but hold your victories lightly. Work toward your dreams, but do not make your happiness dependent on achieving them. The wise man feels pain, but does not amplify it with resistance. When sickness comes, he treats it without cursing fate. When loss arrives, he grieves without bitterness. When failure strikes, he learns without self-pity. He meets each experience with presence, not protest. Consider the difference between the man who loses his fortune and rages against the injustice, and the man who loses his fortune and asks what this loss can teach him. Both men face the same pain. Only one chooses to multiply it with attachment. To what was, practice this discipline. When pain arrives, welcome it as a teacher. Ask not why me, but what now. Ask not, how can I escape this? But how can I grow through this? This shift in questioning transforms you from victim to student, from sufferer to philosopher. Your peace cannot depend on life going according to your plan. Your strength cannot depend on avoiding difficulty. Your happiness cannot depend on getting what you want. These dependencies make you fragile. Free yourself from them and become unbreakable. Pain will visit you many times before your final breath. You cannot prevent this, but you can choose whether pain becomes suffering or whether it becomes strength. You can choose whether it breaks you or forges you. But let me ask you this. What attachments are you clinging to that transform natural pain into unnecessary suffering? What expectations about how life should be are preventing you from accepting how life is? The man who expects nothing is disappointed by nothing. The man who accepts everything is disturbed by nothing. This is not defeat. This is victory. Desire is the chain that binds you to suffering. Every want creates a dependency. Every craving builds a prison. The more you need to be happy, the more fragile your happiness becomes. True wealth is not in having everything you want, but in wanting nothing you do not have. I ruled the greatest empire the world had ever known. Gold flowed through my treasury like water through a fountain. Marble palaces housed my family. Servants attended my every need. Yet I tell you this, my greatest freedom came not from having more, but from needing less. Look around you. See how desire has enslaved your generation. Men work jobs they hate to buy things they do not need to impress people they do not like. Women sacrifice their peace for possessions that promise happiness but deliver only temporary satisfaction. Children learn to measure their worth by what they own rather than who they are. The marketplace has become a temple where desire is worshipped and contentment is blasphemy. You are told that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next acquisition, but I have observed this truth. The man who has everything he wants is no happier than the man who wants nothing he lacks. Here's what most people don't understand about desire. It is not the getting that enslaves you, it is the wanting. The moment you say, I need this to be happy, you have made your happiness dependent on something outside your control. You have handed your peace to forces that care nothing for your Well-being. The poor man who wants nothing is richer than the wealthy man who wants everything. The poor man sleeps peacefully while the wealthy man lies awake planning his next acquisition. Who is truly free? This is not about living in poverty. This is about living without the poverty of spirit that comes from constant craving. Use what you have. Enjoy what you possess. But do not let your happiness depend on having more than you have or keeping what you have forever. The wise man distinguishes between his needs and his wants. He needs food, shelter, and purpose. Everything else is luxury. When luxury comes, he enjoys it without attachment. When luxury goes, he releases it without regret. His happiness flows from within, not from his circumstances. Practice this discipline. Before making any purchase, ask yourself whether you are buying something you need or feeding something you want. Before envying another's possessions, ask yourself whether you truly need what they have or whether you simply want what they have. This simple question reveals the difference between necessity and craving. The fewer things you need to be happy, the more unbreakable your peace becomes. The man who needs only his own approval is free from the opinions of others. The man who needs only basic shelter is free from the anxiety of losing a mansion. The man who needs only simple food is free from the worry of affording luxuries. Simplicity is not deprivation. It is liberation. When you want less, you have more time, because you spend less time earning money for things you do not need. More peace, because you worry less about protecting possessions you do not require. More freedom, because you depend less on circumstances beyond your control. But this requires courage. It requires the courage to live differently from those around you. It requires the courage to find happiness in what you have rather than in what you lack. It requires the courage to define wealth as having enough rather than having more. Consider the man who owns 10 houses but fears losing them all, and the man who owns 1 house but appreciates it fully. Consider the woman who has a closet full of clothes but always feels she has nothing to wear, and the woman who has few clothes but feels gratitude for each piece. Who lives with greater richness? Your desires will multiply if you feed them. Your contentment will grow if you cultivate it. Which are you choosing to nourish? Which are you choosing to strengthen? The marketplace will always tell you that happiness lies in the next purchase. Your ego will always tell you that status lies in the next acquisition. But I tell you this, happiness lies in appreciating what you already have, and status lies in needing less than others require. But let me ask you this, what are you wanting that you do not truly need? What desires are you feeding that only create more hunger? What would happen if you spent as much energy cultivating gratitude as you spend pursuing acquisition? The richest man is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. Choose richness. Choose freedom. Choose enough. You do not prepare in peacetime for peacetime. You prepare in peacetime for war. Every morning you wake is an opportunity to strengthen the muscles of your mind for the battles that will surely come. The man who waits until chaos arrives to develop his discipline will find himself defenseless when he needs strength most. I rose each dawn while Rome still slept, and prepared my mind like a general prepares his army. Not because I enjoyed the discipline, but because I knew the day would test every ounce of mental strength I possessed. Senators would challenge my decisions. Barbarians would threaten my borders. Plague would ravage my people. These were not possibilities. They were certainties. Your life is no different. Chaos is not coming. It is already here. It simply disguises itself as routine until the moment it reveals its true nature. The phone call that changes everything, the diagnosis that rewrites your future, the betrayal that shatters your trust, the failure that destroys your plans. These moments do not announce themselves. They arrive without warning and demand immediate response. Here's what most people don't understand about preparation. They prepare for the chaos they can imagine, but life specializes in chaos beyond imagination. You cannot prepare for specific disasters, but you can prepare for the mental state disaster requires. You cannot predict what will break, but you can strengthen what will be tested. Every morning, before the world begins its assault on your attention, train your mind like a soldier sharpens his sword. Practice seeing obstacles as opportunities. Practice finding calm in confusion. Practice discovering strength in struggle. This is not optimistic thinking, this is tactical preparation. Begin each day by imagining loss, not to invite misfortune, but to practice acceptance. Imagine losing your job and ask yourself how you would respond with dignity. Imagine betrayal by someone you trust and ask yourself how you would respond with grace. Imagine failure of your greatest plans and ask yourself how you would respond with wisdom. This mental rehearsal is not pessimism, it is preparation. The boxer who trains for his opponent's hardest punch is not expecting to be hit. He is preparing to remain standing if he is hit. The general who plans for his enemy's strongest attack is not expecting to be defeated. He is preparing to respond effectively if attacked. When actual chaos arrives, you will not rise to the occasion. You will fall to your level of preparation. The man who has never practiced patience will not suddenly become patient in crisis. The woman who has never practiced courage will not suddenly become brave in danger. These qualities must be built. In advance, rep by rep, day by day. Practice poverty while you have wealth. Sleep on the floor occasionally while you have a bed. Fast while you have food. Walk while you have a car. This is not punishment. This is preparation. You are teaching your mind that comfort is temporary and that happiness does not depend on luxury. Practice criticism while you have praise. Imagine your reputation being destroyed and ask yourself whether your peace would survive. Practice loneliness while you have company. Sit in silence and discover whether you can be content with yourself as your only companion. The weak man hopes chaos will never come. The wise man knows chaos is always coming and prepares accordingly. Which are you choosing to be? Your discipline. Today determines your options tomorrow. Your preparation in calm determines your stability in storm. Your training in comfort determines your strength in suffering. There are no shortcuts to readiness. There are no overnight solutions to lifelong preparation. But let me ask you this: what chaos are you not preparing for because you hope it will never arrive? What mental muscles are you not strengthening because you assume they will never be tested? What disciplines are you avoiding because they feel unnecessary in times of ease? The storm does not care whether you are ready. The crisis does not wait for you to prepare. The chaos does not announce its arrival. But the man who trains daily for chaos carries calm into every storm. The woman who prepares her mind for battle finds peace in every conflict. Train today for the battles of tomorrow. Not because you want them to come, but because you know they will. Ready your mind like a weapon that may save your life. Practice discipline like a skill that will define your legacy. Every morning is basic training for the war of life. Do not waste it sleeping. Do not waste it hoping. Use it preparing. Use it strengthening. Use it becoming the person who can handle whatever comes. Anger feels like strength, but it is the weakest response to any situation. It feels like justice, but it is the enemy of clear judgment. It feels like power, but it hands control of your mind to whoever triggered it. The angry man believes he is responding to injustice. In reality, he is advertising his own slavery. I have seen anger destroy more empires than any barbarian army. I have watched it turn wise men into fools, strong leaders into weak reactionaries, and noble hearts into bitter souls. Anger promises to solve problems, but creates only more problems. It promises to deliver justice, but delivers only destruction. You think anger serves you, but observe what it actually does. It clouds your judgment when you need clarity most. It weakens your reason when you need wisdom most. It isolates you from allies when you need support most. The angry man makes decisions he will regret and says words he cannot take back. He becomes his own worst enemy. Here's what most people don't understand about anger. It is not an emotion. It is a choice. Between the trigger and your response lies a moment of decision. In that moment, you can choose anger or you can choose wisdom. You can choose reaction or you can choose response. You can choose to be controlled or you can choose to remain free. The fool believes his anger is justified by the actions of others. The wise man knows that his anger is always his own choice, regardless of what others do. No one can make you angry without your permission. No one can disturb your peace without your cooperation. Your anger is not their fault. It is your decision. When someone insults you, they offer you poison. When you become angry, you drink it. When someone betrays you, they show you their character. When you rage about it, you damage your own character. When someone acts foolishly, they reveal their wisdom. When you respond angrily, you reveal your own foolishness. Anger is a cage you built yourself. The bars are forged from your expectations of how others should behave. The lock is your insistence that you know better than they do. The key is your willingness to release your need to control their actions and focus on controlling your own responses. But anger feels so right in the moment. It feels like righteous indignation. It feels like standing up for yourself. It feels like refusing to be walked on. These feelings lie to you. True strength lies in remaining calm while others lose their composure. True dignity lies in responding with wisdom while others react with emotion. The angry man believes he is fighting for justice. The wise man knows that anger and justice are enemies. Justice requires clear thinking, careful analysis, and measured response. Anger provides none of these. It provides only heat without light, noise without music, action without wisdom. Practice this discipline. When anger rises, pause. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself what this anger is really about. Is it about the situation, or is it about your pride? Is it about their actions, or is it about your expectations? Is it about justice, or is it about control? Most anger is not about the present moment. It is about past wounds reopened, future fears triggered, or ego defenses activated. The person who cuts you off in traffic is not the real target of your rage. The real target is your belief that the world should conform to your preferences. The disciplined man feels the initial flash of anger. This is natural, but he does not feed it. He does not rehearse it. He does not justify it. He acknowledges it and lets it pass like a cloud across the sun. The cloud comes and goes. The sun remains unchanged. When others act badly, you have two choices. You can join them in their low behavior by responding with anger, or you can remain at your high standard by responding with wisdom. You can sink to their level, or you can invite them to rise to yours, which serves your character better. The angry man gives others power over his emotional state. The calm man keeps that power for himself. The angry man becomes a puppet, dancing to others' actions. The calm man remains the master of his own responses. But let me ask you this: what situations trigger your anger most easily? What people have you given the power to disturb your peace? What expectations are you holding that turn disappointment into rage? Your anger serves no one. It does not change the past. It does not improve the future. It does not teach anyone lessons. It only weakens your mind and strengthens your enemies. Release it not as a gift to others, but as a gift to yourself. The cage of anger has no lock that others control. You built it, you maintain it, you can demolish it. The key is not in their hands, it is in your mind. Use it. Anyone can speak. Few can remain silent, anyone can act. Few can choose stillness. Anyone can react. Few can exercise restraint. True power is not in what you do. It is in what you choose not to do. The greatest strength is not in forcing your will upon the world, but in having the discipline to withhold your force when wisdom demands it. I commanded legions who would march into death at my word. I could execute senators with a gesture. I could reshape laws with a decree. Yet the moments I'm most proud of are not when I use this power, but when I chose not to use it. Restraint in the face of provocation, silence in the face of insult, patience in the face of incompetence. The world mistakes action for strength. It confuses noise for importance. It assumes that the person who does the most, speaks the loudest, and reacts the fastest must be the most powerful. But observe closely, and you will see the opposite. The truly powerful move deliberately. They speak carefully. They act only when action serves their purpose. Here's what most people don't understand about restraint. It is not weakness disguised as strength. It is strength so complete it does not need to prove itself. The man who must constantly demonstrate his power has little power to demonstrate. The man who can remain still in the storm has more power than the man who screams at the wind. When someone provokes you, they are testing your power. Not your power to retaliate, but your power to choose not to retaliate. When someone insults you, they are measuring your strength. Not your strength to insult back, but your strength to remain above the insult. The weak man takes the bait. The strong man ignores it. Every day presents you with opportunities to exercise restraint, the urge to speak when silence would serve better, the impulse to act when patience would achieve more, the desire to prove you are right when being right is less important than being wise. These moments are training grounds for your discipline. The market rewards action. The office rewards reaction. Society rewards response. But wisdom rewards restraint. The carpenter who measures twice and cuts once builds better than the carpenter who cuts repeatedly. The general who waits for the right moment wins more battles than the general who attacks impulsively. Practice holding your tongue when you want to speak. Practice sitting still when you want to move. Practice waiting when you want to rush. This is not paralysis. This is preparation. You are building the muscles of self-control that will serve you when stakes are highest. The undisciplined man speaks every thought, acts on every impulse, and reacts to every provocation. He believes this makes him authentic. In reality, it makes him predictable. The disciplined man speaks only thoughts worth hearing, acts only when action serves his purpose, and responds only when response improves the situation. Watch how the truly powerful behave. They do not interrupt others. They listen fully before speaking. They do not rush to judgment. They gather information before deciding. They do not react immediately to criticism. They consider whether the criticism contains wisdom worth accepting. Restraint is not for others. It is for you. When you hold back the harsh word, you preserve your dignity. When you resist the petty action, you maintain your character. When you choose patience over impulse, you demonstrate mastery over yourself. But restraint requires practice. The man who has never practiced silence will not remain quiet in crisis. The woman who has never practiced patience will not wait when waiting is wise. These disciplines must be built in small moments to serve you in great moments. The weak man believes power comes from doing whatever he wants whenever he wants. The strong man knows power comes from wanting only what he should want and doing only what he should do. Which understanding guides your choices? Freedom is not the ability to do anything. Freedom is the discipline to do only what serves your highest purpose. Power is not the capacity to force your will on others. Power is the capacity to control your own will when others try to disturb it. But let me ask you this: where in your life are you confusing action with strength? Where are you reacting when you should be restraining? Where are you speaking when you should be listening? Where are you moving when you should be still? The river has more power than the storm because it knows when to flow and when to hold back. The mountain has more strength than the earthquake because it remains unmoved while everything shakes around it. Learn from both. Flow when flowing serves you. Stand firm when standing serves you. True power whispers while weakness shouts. True strength moves with purpose while weakness flails with panic. True discipline chooses carefully while impulse chooses quickly. The most powerful word you can speak is the word you choose not to speak. The strongest action you can take is the action you choose not to take. Master this, and you master yourself. Your job is not who you are. Your bank account is not your worth. Your failures are not your identity. Your success is not your essence. You are not your circumstances. You are how you carry yourself through all of them. The man who confuses his situation with his identity becomes a prisoner of his conditions. The man who separates his worth from his circumstances remains free. Regardless of what happens to him, I was born into privilege, but I have seen privilege destroy men. I was raised to power, but I have seen power corrupt souls. I was given wealth, but I have seen wealth impoverish character. None of these external things determined who I became. What determined my character was how I chose to use what I was given and how I chose to respond to what I was denied. The slave who maintains his dignity in chains is freer than the emperor who loses his honor on the throne. The poor man who keeps his principles in poverty is richer than the wealthy man who abandons his values for profit. The failure who learns from his mistakes is more successful than the winner who learns nothing from his victories. Here's what most people don't understand about identity. They build their sense of self on foundations that can be shaken. They derive their worth from achievements that can be lost. They measure their value by possessions that can be taken. When these external supports fail, they believe they have failed. When these circumstances change, they believe they have changed. But you are not what you do for work. You are not how much money you have. You are not what others think of you. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your future plans. You are the consciousness that observes all of these things. You are the awareness that experiences all of these conditions. You are the decision maker who chooses how to respond. To all of these circumstances, your true identity lies not in what happens to you, but in how you meet what happens to you. Not in what you achieve, but in how you handle both achievement and failure. Not in what you possess, but in how you relate to both having and not having. Your character is revealed not by your circumstances, but by your responses to your circumstances. The man who says, "I am a lawyer," has confused his profession with his identity. The woman who says, "I am wealthy," has confused her assets with her essence. The person who says, "I am a failure," has confused their results with their worth. These are all things you do or have or experience, but they are not who you are. Who you are is revealed in how you treat others when you have power and when you lack power. Who you are is shown in how you behave when you are praised and when you are criticized. Who you are is demonstrated in how you act when you are winning and when you are losing. Practice this separation. When people ask what you do, notice the urge to define yourself by your work. When people ask about your achievements, observe the temptation to measure your worth by your accomplishments. When people judge your circumstances, feel the impulse to defend your identity rather than simply accepting their opinion as irrelevant. To who you are, your circumstances are temporary, your character is permanent, your situation changes with time and fortune, your integrity remains constant through all changes, your external conditions are subject to forces beyond your control. Your internal responses are always within your power. The wise man uses good circumstances to practice virtue and bad circumstances to build character. The foolish man is made arrogant by good circumstances and defeated by bad circumstances. The wise man remains himself regardless of what happens to him. The foolish man becomes whatever his circumstances make him. When success comes, you are not success. You are the person experiencing success. When failure arrives, you are not failure. You are the person experiencing failure. When praise flows, you are not praise. You are the person receiving praise. When criticism stings, you are not criticism. You are the person hearing criticism. This perspective frees you from the exhausting work of defending your circumstances. You do not need to justify your job to feel worthy. You do not need to explain your income to feel valuable. You do not need to defend your past to feel acceptable. Your worth is not up for debate because it does not depend on external validation. But let me ask you this. What circumstances have you been using to define yourself? What external conditions have you been allowing to determine your worth? What temporary situations have you been confusing with your permanent identity? The emperor who remembers he is a man will not be corrupted by power. The slave who remembers he is a man will not be broken by bondage. The rich man who remembers he is a man will not be destroyed by wealth. The poor man who remembers he is a man will not be defeated by poverty. You are not your circumstances. You are the experiencer of your circumstances. You are not your conditions. You are the one who chooses how to respond to your conditions. You are not your situation. You are the consciousness that observes your situation and decides what to do about it. Remember this when fortune smiles on you. Remember this when fortune frowns on you. Remember this when others praise you. Remember this when others criticize you. You are not what happens to you. You are how you carry yourself through what happens to you. Hardship is not a punishment sent by the gods. It is not evidence that you have failed or that life is unfair. Hardship is a forge, and you are the metal being shaped within it. Every difficulty that enters your path is a summons to grow stronger, wiser, and freer. The obstacle is not blocking your path, it is your path. I faced plagues that decimated my empire. I fought wars that drained my treasury. I endured betrayals that wounded my heart. I governed men who tested my patience daily. Each hardship arrived like an uninvited teacher, demanding lessons I did not want to learn. Yet these obstacles forged me into the man I became. Without them, I would have remained soft, untested, and weak. The untrained mind sees obstacles as enemies. It asks, "Why me?" It demands, "When will this end?" It pleads, "How can I escape?" But the trained mind sees obstacles as opportunities. It asks, "What can I learn?" It wonders, "How can I grow?" It inquires, "Who can I become through this?" Here's what most people don't understand about difficulty. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you. Under pressure, your true character emerges. In crisis, your real priorities become clear. Through struggle, your hidden strengths are discovered. The obstacle strips away everything superficial and shows you what remains when all else is removed. When sickness comes, it teaches you the value of health. When loss arrives, it reveals what truly matters. When failure strikes, it shows you what needs improvement. When betrayal wounds, it demonstrates who deserves your trust. Every obstacle carries within it the seeds of wisdom for those willing to plant them. The weak man curses his obstacles and remains weak. The strong man embraces his obstacles and grows stronger. The weak man sees difficulty as evidence that life is against him. The strong man sees difficulty as evidence that life is preparing him for something greater. But obstacles require the right response to become teachers. Meet them with resistance, and they teach only frustration. Meet them with self-pity, and they teach only victimhood. Meet them with blame, and they teach only bitterness. Meet them with grace, and they teach wisdom, strength, and character. Grace does not mean passive acceptance. Grace means active engagement with dignity. When the obstacle appears, you do not surrender. You strategize. You do not complain. You adapt. You do not blame. You take responsibility. You do not retreat. You find another way forward. Practice this perspective daily. When traffic delays you, see it as an opportunity to practice patience. When someone disappoints you, see it as a chance to practice forgiveness. When plans fail, see it as an invitation to practice flexibility. When criticism stings, see it as a prompt to practice humility. The obstacle that frustrates you today may be preparing you for a greater challenge tomorrow. The skill you develop overcoming this difficulty may be exactly what you need for the next difficulty. The strength you build facing this hardship may be precisely what someone else needs you to have when they face their hardship. Every great man was forged in the fires of great obstacles. Every wise woman was educated in the school of great difficulties. Every strong character was shaped on the anvil of great challenges. The comfortable life produces comfortable men. The difficult life produces extraordinary men. When the obstacle appears, do not ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What now?" Do not wonder, "How long will this last?" Wonder, "How can I use this?" Do not demand, "When will this end?" Demand of yourself, "What will I become through this?" The Roman legions were not trained in comfortable camps. They were trained in harsh conditions that simulated battle. The general who protects his soldiers from all difficulty produces soldiers who break in real war. Life does not protect you from all difficulty because it is preparing you for real battles. Your current obstacle is not your enemy. It is your trainer. It is not your punishment. It is your curriculum. It is not your problem. It is your opportunity. Meet it with the grace of a student eager to learn, not the resistance of a victim eager to escape. But let me ask you this: what obstacles are you fighting instead of learning from? What difficulties are you cursing instead of using? What hardships are you seeing as punishments instead of preparations? The path of least resistance leads to the weakest destinations. The path through obstacles leads to the strongest character. Choose your path wisely. Choose your response gracefully. The obstacle is the way. Walk it with dignity. Stop measuring yourself by what others have. Stop defining your worth by their achievements. Stop torturing yourself with their success. Comparison is the thief of peace, the enemy of contentment, and the destroyer of self-respect. The moment you begin measuring your life against another's life, you lose sight of your own path and your own purpose. I ruled an empire, yet there were always other rulers with larger territories. I commanded respect, yet there were always other leaders with greater popularity. I achieved much, yet there were always others who achieved more. If I had spent my days comparing my empire to theirs, my respect to theirs, my achievements to theirs, I would have lived in constant torment despite my enormous blessings. The comparing mind is never satisfied. When you surpass one person, it immediately finds another person who surpasses you. When you achieve one goal, it immediately shows you someone who achieved a greater goal. When you reach one level, it immediately points to someone at a higher level. Comparison creates a race with no finish line and a game with no possibility of permanent victory. Here's what most people don't understand about comparison. You are comparing your inner experience with their outer appearance. You know your struggles, your fears, your failures, and your doubts. You see their success, their confidence, their achievements, and their victories. This is not a fair comparison. It is a rigged contest that you cannot win. The person you envy for their wealth may be drowning in anxiety about losing it. The person you admire for their fame may be suffocating under the pressure of maintaining it. The person you respect for their achievements may be empty inside despite their external success. You see their highlight reel and compare it to your behind-the-scenes reality. But even if their lives were as perfect as they appear, what relevance does this have to your life? Their path is theirs to walk. Their lessons are theirs to learn. Their purpose is theirs to fulfill. Your path is waiting for you to walk it with full attention, not partial attention divided between your journey and their journey. Comparison robs you of gratitude for what you have by constantly showing you what you lack. It steals your energy for building your own life by wasting it on envying other lives. It destroys your appreciation for your own progress by measuring it against someone else's progress. It transforms your unique journey into a generic competition. When you see someone with more money, remember that wealth brings its own burdens. When you see someone with greater fame, remember that recognition brings its own pressures. When you see someone with different achievements, remember that every path has its own price. Their advantages come with disadvantages you cannot see. Their strengths come with weaknesses they may hide. Practice this discipline. When comparison arises, redirect your attention to your own growth. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have what they have?" wonder ask, "What am I learning that they are not learning?" Instead of wondering, "Why are they ahead of me?" wonder, "What is my next step forward?" Instead of focusing on their achievements, focus on your own progress. Your life is not a competition with others. It is a collaboration with yourself. You are not racing against them. You are racing against your own potential. You are not trying to beat them. You are trying to become the best version of yourself. This is a race you can win because you are both the runner and the finish line. The wise man runs his own race at his own pace toward his own destination. The foolish man runs someone else's race at someone else's pace toward someone else's destination, and wonders why he feels lost. Which race are you running? Every person has different starting points, different resources, different challenges, and different purposes. Comparing your chapter 3 to their chapter 30 makes no sense. Comparing your beginning to their middle makes no sense. Comparing your struggle to their success makes no sense. You are not reading the same book. The energy you spend envying others could be spent improving yourself. The time you waste comparing could be invested in creating. The attention you give to their achievements could be focused on your own growth. Which use of your mental resources serves your life better? But let me ask you this. Who are you comparing yourself to that steals your peace? What achievements of others make you feel inadequate about your own progress? What aspects of other people's lives make you ungrateful for your own blessings? Their path is theirs. Your path is yours. Their journey is theirs. Your journey is yours. Their purpose is theirs. Your purpose is yours. Walk your own path with dignity. Run your own race with honor. Live your own life with gratitude. The grass always appears greener on the other side because you are not responsible for watering it. Focus on making your own grass green. Focus on tending your own garden. Focus on building your own life. Your worth is not determined by how you compare to others. Your value is not measured by your ranking among peers. Your success is not defined by your position relative to competitors. You are enough as you are, where you are, with what you have. Stop looking sideways at others and start looking forward at your own path. The journey ahead of you is more important than the journey beside you. Silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. Stillness is not inactivity, it is power reclaimed. In a world that profits from your distraction, your attention scattered in 1,000 directions, the choice to seek stillness becomes an act of rebellion. The man who cannot sit alone with his thoughts is a slave to external stimulation. The man who finds peace in silence is free from the need for constant entertainment. I rose before dawn each day not to fill the silence with activity, but to fill my mind with clarity. In those quiet moments before Rome awakened with its demands and distractions, I found the center from which all wise action flows. The emperor who cannot govern himself in silence cannot govern an empire in chaos. Your generation drowns in stimulation. Screens compete for your attention. Notifications demand your response. Entertainment promises to fill every quiet moment. Music eliminates silence. Podcasts replace reflection. Social media substitutes for solitude. You have become afraid of your own thoughts, uncomfortable with your own company, dependent on external input for internal peace. Here's what most people don't understand about stillness. It is not the absence of action. It is the presence of intention. It is not the elimination of thought. It is the clarification of thought. It is not the avoidance of life. It is the deepening of life. In stillness, you discover what truly matters. In silence, you hear what your soul is trying to tell you. The mind that requires constant stimulation is like a muscle that has never learned to rest. It becomes weak, twitchy, and unable to sustain focused effort. The mind that practices stillness is like a muscle that has learned when to work and when to recover. It becomes strong, steady, and capable of sustained concentration. When you cannot sit in silence for 10 minutes without reaching for your phone, you have lost control of your attention. When you cannot walk without music, you have lost comfort with your own thoughts. When you cannot eat without entertainment, you have lost appreciation for simple experiences. These are not small losses. They are the surrender of your mental sovereignty. Practice stillness like a discipline, not a luxury. Begin each day with minutes of silence before the world begins its assault on your attention. End each day with reflection before sleep claims your consciousness. Throughout the day, create islands of quiet in the ocean of noise. Sit without entertainment. Walk without podcasts. Eat without screens. Think without interruption. These practices feel uncomfortable at first because your mind has been trained to expect constant input. Like any addiction, the withdrawal from stimulation creates discomfort, but through this discomfort lies freedom. In stillness, you discover thoughts you never had time to think. You process experiences you never had space to digest. You connect with feelings you never had quiet to feel. You remember dreams you never had silence to pursue. Stillness is not empty time. It is fertile time where insights grow. The ancient philosophers retreated to quiet places not to escape life, but to understand life more deeply. The greatest insights come not from consuming more information, but from processing the information you already have. The wisest decisions emerge not from gathering more opinions, but from listening to your own wisdom. Your phone buzzes and you respond immediately. Your computer chimes and you check instantly. Your environment demands and you supply constantly. You have trained yourself to be a servant to stimulation. Retrain yourself to be a master of stillness. The world will always offer you distractions. The market will always sell you entertainment. Technology will always promise easier, faster, more stimulating experiences. But the man who needs constant stimulation to feel alive is already dead inside. The woman who requires endless entertainment to feel happy has forgotten how to generate her own joy. Stillness is not boredom, it is presence. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. Solitude is not loneliness, it is completion. When you can be content with yourself as your only companion, you are truly free from dependency on others for your peace. But let me ask you this. When did you last sit in complete silence for an hour? When did you last take a walk without any audio input? When did you last spend a day without checking your phone? How comfortable are you with your own thoughts as your only entertainment? The stillness you avoid may contain the clarity you seek. The silence you fill may be where your wisdom waits. The quiet you escape may be where your peace lives. Seek stillness, not as escape from life, but as preparation for life. Use silence not to avoid your thoughts, but to organize your thoughts. Choose solitude not to hide from others, but to find yourself. In the stillness, you remember who you are. In the silence, you hear what matters. In the quiet, you find the strength to face whatever noise awaits you. The world is loud. Be still. The world is chaotic. Be centered. The world is distracted. Be focused. Stillness is power. Silence is wisdom. Solitude is freedom. Claim them all. You cannot be free if you are addicted to approval. You cannot live authentically if you are enslaved to others' opinions. You cannot find peace if your worth depends on their praise. The man who needs everyone to like him will be liked by no one, including himself. The woman who shapes herself to fit others' expectations will lose the shape of her own soul. I could have ruled to win applause rather than to serve Rome. I could have made decisions based on popular opinion rather than principled judgment. I could have spoken words designed to please rather than words aligned with truth. But a leader who governs for approval is not a leader. He is a follower with a crown. You sacrifice your authenticity for their acceptance. You suppress your opinions to avoid their disagreement. You change your behavior to earn their praise. You abandon your principles to maintain their comfort. In doing so, you lose yourself piece by piece until nothing remains but a hollow shell shaped by others' preferences. Here's what most people don't understand about approval seeking. It is not kindness. It is cowardice. It is not generosity. It is fear. It is not consideration. It is self-betrayal. When you betray yourself to please others, you teach them that your true self is not worth knowing. You train them to prefer your false self to your real self. The people pleaser believes he is being loving by agreeing with everyone. In reality, he is being dishonest by agreeing with no one, including himself. He thinks he is avoiding conflict by never taking a stand. In reality, he is creating the greatest conflict of all, the war between who he is and who he pretends to be. Your worth is not determined by their approval. Your value is not measured by their acceptance. Your identity is not defined by their opinions. These external judgments are as changeable as the weather and as reliable as rumors. Build your self-respect on the only foundation that cannot be shaken, your own integrity. When you live to please others, you please no one completely, including yourself. When you live according to your principles, you may displease some, but you respect yourself completely. Which legacy serves your life better? Which choice honors your character more? The approval you crave from others is infinite in its appetite, but finite in its satisfaction. No amount of praise will ever be enough if your self-worth depends on external validation. No level of acceptance will ever feel secure if your peace requires others' permission. You are chasing a finish line that moves every time you approach. Practice saying no without explanation. Practice expressing your opinion without apology. Practice making decisions based on your values rather than their preferences. These actions feel dangerous at first because you have been taught that disagreement equals rejection. But observe what actually happens when you stop people-pleasing. Some people will respect you more for having boundaries. Some will appreciate your honesty more than your agreeability. Some will trust you more because they know you speak your truth rather than their preferred lies. The relationships that deepen through your authenticity are the relationships worth keeping. Others may become uncomfortable with your newfound backbone. They may pressure you to return to your people-pleasing ways. They may criticize you for no longer prioritizing their comfort over your integrity. These reactions reveal that they valued your compliance more than your character. Let them go. You are not responsible for managing others' emotions. You are not required to sacrifice your truth for their comfort. You are not obligated to diminish yourself so others feel superior. Your job is to live with integrity, not to live for approval. The man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. The woman who believes in nothing will follow anyone. The person who has no principles will be shaped by every opinion. Is this the life you want to live? Is this the person you want to be? Your authentic self may not be loved by everyone, but it will be respected by those who matter. Your genuine opinions may not be popular with all, but they will be valued by those who value truth. Your real personality may not appeal to everyone, but it will attract those who appreciate authenticity. But let me ask you this: whose approval are you seeking at the expense of your own self-respect? What aspects of yourself are you hiding to avoid their disapproval? What truths are you not speaking to maintain their comfort? What decisions are you not making to preserve their opinion of you? Stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I think?" Stop wondering, "Will they approve?" and start wondering, "Do I approve of myself?" Stop seeking their permission. To live and start giving yourself permission to be authentic. The people who love the real you are worth more than the multitudes who love your mask. The few who accept your authentic self are more valuable than the many who accept your false self. Quality over quantity, truth over popularity, integrity over approval. You came into this world as yourself. You will leave this world as yourself. The time between birth and death is too short to spend it being someone else. Live as yourself. Speak as yourself. Choose as yourself. Stop pleasing. Start living. The world needs your authentic contribution, not your anxious conformity. The past is over. The future is unknown. Only now can you act, choose, and be free. Yet you spend your precious present moments reliving what cannot be changed and rehearsing what may never come. You torture yourself with memories that serve no purpose, and worry yourself with possibilities that exist only in imagination. The present moment is the only time you possess, yet it is the time you most often abandon. I learned this truth while governing an empire under constant threat. I could have spent my days regretting past decisions that led to current problems. I could have spent my nights fearing future invasions that might never materialize. Instead, I learned to pour my full attention into the decisions before me in this moment, for these were the only decisions I could actually make. Your mind is a time traveler, but not a helpful one. It journeys to the past to collect regrets and to the future to gather worries. It returns to the present carrying this baggage from times that do not exist, polluting the only time that does exist with anxieties from the only times that do not exist. This is not wisdom. This is torture. Here's what most people don't understand about time. The past exists only in memory. The future exists only in imagination. Neither has any reality except the reality you give them by investing your present attention in them. When you worry about tomorrow, you sacrifice today. When you regret yesterday, you waste today. You trade the real for the imagined, the present. Moment contains everything you need to make the next right choice. It contains all the information available for the decision at hand. It contains all the power you possess to influence what comes next. Past information can inform present decisions, but past regrets cannot change present realities. Future planning can guide present actions, but future worries cannot improve present circumstances. When you find your mind drifting to past failures, ask yourself, what can I learn from this that serves my present situation? When you find your mind racing to future disasters, ask yourself, what can I do right now to prepare for what may come? Use the past as a teacher, not a prison. Use the future as motivation, not torment. The anxious mind lives everywhere, except where life actually happens. It replays conversations that ended years ago, searching for different words to say. It rehearses confrontations that may never occur, preparing for battles that exist only in imagination. Meanwhile, the real conversation, happening now, goes unheard. The real opportunity presenting itself now goes unnoticed. Practice returning to the present moment throughout your day. When you catch your mind wandering to past regrets, breathe deeply and return attention to what you can do right now. When you notice future worries consuming your thoughts, breathe deeply and focus on what you can control right now. This breath, this choice, this moment, these are your actual power. The present moment is not perfect, but it is real. The past was not perfect when it was present, and fantasizing about it will not make it perfect now. The future will not be perfect when it becomes present, and worrying about it will not make it perfect then. Accept the imperfection of now instead of escaping to the imagined perfection of then. You cannot change what happened yesterday, but you can choose how to respond to what is happening today. You cannot control what will happen tomorrow, but you can influence what happens tomorrow by how you act today. Your power is always in the present, never in the past or future. The man who lives in the present makes better decisions because his attention is fully available for current circumstances. The woman who focuses on now solves problems more effectively because her mental energy is not scattered across multiple timelines. The person who inhabits this moment experiences life more fully because they are actually present for their own life. Memory serves you when it provides wisdom for present choices. Imagination serves you when it inspires present actions. Both betray you when they become escapes from present realities. Use the past as a library, not a living room. Use the future as a map, not a destination. When you are eating, taste the food instead of thinking about tomorrow's meetings. When you are walking, Feel your feet touching the ground instead of replaying yesterday's conversations. When you are with others, listen to their words instead of planning your responses. Be where you are when you are there. The present moment is not always pleasant, but it is always workable. You cannot work with the past because it is finished. You cannot work with the future because it has not arrived. You can only work with now because now is all you have. This limitation is not a burden, it is a gift. It focuses your power where your power can actually be used. But let me ask you this. How much of your day do you actually spend in the present moment? How often do you catch your mind living in times that no longer exist, or times that do not yet exist? What would change if you brought the full force of your attention to what is happening right now? The present moment is your point of power. The present choice is your tool of influence. The present breath is your anchor to reality. Everything else is story, memory, imagination, or projection. You cannot be free in the past because the past is fixed. You cannot be free in the future because the future is uncertain. You can only be free now because now is when choice exists. Now is when action happens. Now is when life occurs. Stop living in the museum of yesterday or the theater of tomorrow. Start living in the workshop of today. This is where your freedom waits. This is where your power lives. This is where your life happens. The present is all you have. It is also all you need. Life owes you nothing. It promised you nothing. It guaranteed you nothing except the opportunity to respond with dignity to whatever comes. Yet, you live as if life signed a contract promising specific outcomes in exchange for your efforts. You believe that hard work guarantees success, that kindness ensures reciprocation, that love demands loyalty. These expectations are chains you forged yourself, and they bind you to disappointment. I expected my senators to be wise. Many were fools. I expected my generals to be loyal. Some were traitors. I expected my efforts to be rewarded with peace. Instead, I inherited wars. I expected gratitude from those I served. Often, I received criticism. The moment I released these expectations was the moment I found freedom from the disappointment they created. Your expectations are not hopes. They are demands you make on reality. When you expect others to behave according to your standards, you set yourself up for frustration when they behave according to theirs. When you expect life to unfold according to your timeline, you guarantee disappointment when life follows its own schedule. When you expect fairness from an inherently unfair world, you choose suffering over acceptance. Here's what most people don't understand about expectations. They are not based on reality. They are based on preference. You expect people to be reasonable because you prefer reasonable people. You expect hard work to be rewarded because you prefer a meritocratic world. You expect justice to prevail because you prefer just outcomes. But reality does not consult your preferences before unfolding. The expectation that others should treat you as you treat them is recipe for disappointment. People will act according to their character, their circumstances, and their understanding, not according to your treatment of them. Your kindness does not obligate their kindness. Your loyalty does not guarantee their loyalty. Your love does not ensure their love. You expect your children to be grateful, but they are focused on their own lives. You expect your spouse to understand your needs, but they are managing their own struggles. You expect your employer to value your contributions, but they are concerned with profits. You expect your friends to prioritize your friendship, but they have their own priorities. These expectations create suffering where acceptance would create peace. Release the expectation that life should be fair. Life is not fair. It is simply life. Some are born into wealth, others into poverty. Some enjoy good health, others battle illness. Some find love easily, others search for years. Fairness is a human concept that nature does not recognize. Accept this and find peace. Fight this and find frustration. Practice engaging with life without the burden of expectations. Do good work because good work aligns with your values, not because good work guarantees good outcomes. Treat others kindly because kindness reflects your character, not because kindness ensures reciprocal treatment. Pursue your goals because pursuit gives your life meaning, not because pursuit promises success. When you release expectations, you do not lower your standards, you raise your freedom. You still work hard, but you do not demand that hard work. Guarantee specific results. You still treat others well, but you do not require that good treatment ensure good responses. You still strive for excellence, but you do not insist that excellence guarantee recognition. The man without expectations cannot be disappointed, because disappointment requires the gap between expectation and reality. The woman without expectations cannot be bitter because bitterness requires the belief that life owes her something. The person without expectations cannot be a victim because victimhood requires the assumption that life should have been different. This does not mean becoming passive. This does not mean lowering your efforts. This does not mean accepting poor treatment from others. This means engaging fully with life while holding lightly to outcomes. This means giving your best effort while accepting whatever results. This means setting boundaries with others while releasing control over their responses. Expectations are often disguised as faith or hope or standards. But observe the difference. Faith says, I will do my best and trust the outcome. Expectations say, I will do my best and demand specific outcomes. Hope says, good things may happen. Expectations say, good things must happen. Standards say, I will not accept poor treatment. Expectations say, others must treat me well. When your happiness depends on specific outcomes, you have made your peace hostage to forces beyond your control. When your satisfaction requires particular responses from others, you have surrendered your emotional sovereignty to their choices. When your success demands certain external conditions, you have built your confidence on an unstable foundation. But let me ask you this. What expectations are you carrying that create suffering when reality fails to meet them? What demands are you making on life that life has never agreed to fulfill? What outcomes are you requiring that may never materialize? What responses are you demanding from others that they may never provide? Engage with life fully, but hold outcomes lightly. Work toward goals passionately, but accept results peacefully. Treat others excellently, but expect nothing in return. Love deeply, but demand nothing in exchange. The freedom from expectations is not the absence of hope. It is the presence of acceptance. It is not the elimination of standards. It is the recognition that your standards apply to your behavior, not others' behavior. It is not the surrender of effort. It is the liberation of effort from the burden of guaranteed results. Life owes you nothing, and this is good news. It means whatever you receive is a gift rather than a debt paid. It means whatever you achieve is an accomplishment rather than an entitlement. It means whatever you experience is an opportunity rather than an obligation. Expect nothing. Appreciate everything. This is the path to unshakable peace. Blame is bondage. Ownership is freedom. The moment you accept complete responsibility for your life, your circumstances, and your responses, you reclaim the power to change everything. The moment you blame others for your situation, you surrender the power to improve it. Responsibility is not a burden to bear. It is liberation to claim. I inherited an empire in crisis. I could have blamed my predecessor for the problems. I could have blamed the barbarians for the invasions. I could have blamed the plague for the devastation. I could have blamed the senators for their incompetence. Instead, I accepted responsibility for finding solutions. This choice transformed me from a victim of circumstances into the master of circumstances. You have been taught to fear responsibility because you mistake it for fault. You avoid owning your choices because you confuse ownership with self-attack. You resist accepting your role in your circumstances because you believe acceptance means you caused everything that happened to you. This is not what responsibility means. Here's what most people don't understand about responsibility. It is not about fault. It is about power. It is not about blame. It is about control. It is not about guilt. It is about freedom. When you accept responsibility for your response to what happens to you, you reclaim the power to change what happens to you. You cannot control what others do, but you can take responsibility for how you respond to what others do. You cannot control what life brings, but you can take responsibility for how you handle what life brings. You cannot control your past, but you can take responsibility for what you do with your past. This responsibility is your power. The victim mindset says, "This happened to me, therefore I am powerless." The responsibility mindset says, "This happened to me, therefore I must respond thoughtfully." The victim mindset says, "They caused this problem, therefore they must fix it." The responsibility mindset says, "This problem exists, therefore I must find solutions." When you blame your childhood for your adult problems, you remain a child. When you blame your circumstances for your choices, you remain powerless. When you blame others for your emotions, you remain dependent. Blame keeps you stuck in the past while responsibility moves you toward the future. This does not mean accepting abuse. This does not mean tolerating injustice. This does not mean believing you caused everything that happened to you. This means accepting that regardless of what caused your current situation, you are responsible for what you do about it. This distinction is crucial. Someone else may have caused the wound, but you are responsible for the healing. Someone else may have created the problem, but you are responsible for the solution. Someone else may have started the conflict, but you are responsible for how you respond to the conflict. This responsibility is not unfair, it is empowering practice. Taking responsibility for outcomes you initially want to blame on others. When a relationship fails, ask what you could have done differently instead of focusing on what they did wrong. When a project fails, ask what you could have controlled instead of listing what was outside your control. When plans fail, ask what you could have anticipated instead of cursing what you could not have predicted. This practice feels uncomfortable at first because blame feels easier than ownership. Blame requires no change from you. Responsibility demands growth from you. Blame allows you to remain the same. Responsibility forces you to become better. Which serves your future more effectively? The responsible person makes the same mistakes once. The blaming person makes the same mistakes repeatedly because they never examine their own role in creating them. The responsible person learns from every failure. The blaming person learns nothing from any failure because the fault always lies elsewhere. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you gain the power to change them. When you blame others for your emotions, you remain at their mercy. When you take responsibility for your choices, you gain the power to make better choices. When you blame circumstances for your choices, you remain victim to circumstances. Responsibility includes owning your mistakes without drowning in guilt. It means acknowledging your errors without defining yourself by them. It means accepting your role without accepting all blame. You are responsible for your response, not for every outcome. You are responsible for your effort, not for every result. The man who takes responsibility for his failures earns the right to take credit for his successes. The woman who owns her mistakes gains the credibility to celebrate her achievements. The person who accepts responsibility for their part gains the authority to demand responsibility from others for their part. You cannot change your past, but you can take responsibility for learning from it. You cannot control others, but you can take responsibility for how you interact with them. You cannot eliminate suffering, but you can take responsibility for how you respond to suffering. This responsibility transforms you from passenger to driver in your own life. When you stop blaming your parents for your problems, you start solving your problems. When you stop blaming your boss for your career struggles, you start managing your career. When you stop blaming others for your loneliness, you start building meaningful relationships. Responsibility is the bridge from where you are to where you want to be. But let me ask you this. What areas of your life are you avoiding responsibility for by blaming others? What problems are you not solving because you are too focused on who caused them? What changes are you not making because you are waiting for others to change first? The person who accepts responsibility without being asked demonstrates maturity. The person who takes ownership without being forced demonstrates leadership. The person who admits mistakes without being caught demonstrates integrity. These qualities attract respect, trust, and opportunities. Responsibility is not punishment for your failures. It is preparation for your success. It is not evidence of your weakness. It is proof of your strength. It is not a burden to carry. It is power to claim. Stop asking, "Who is to blame?" and start asking, "What is my role?" Stop wondering, "Why did this happen to me?" and start wondering, "What will I do about this?" Stop demanding, "Someone should fix this," and start declaring, "I will handle this." The victim gives away power and keeps problems. The responsible person claims power and solves problems. Which person are you choosing to be? Which mindset are you choosing to embrace? Responsibility is the price of freedom. Pay it gladly, for the alternative is the cost of remaining powerless. Accept responsibility not because it is fair, but because it is effective. Own your choices not because you are at fault, but because ownership gives you the power to choose differently. You are responsible for your life. This is not a burden. It is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Stoicism is not apathy. It is not emotional numbness. It is not withdrawal from life. True Stoicism is full engagement without emotional slavery. It is caring deeply without clinging desperately. It is loving completely without needing to possess. You can act with passion while remaining detached from outcomes. You can care about people while releasing control over their choices. I loved my children deeply, yet I knew they would make their own decisions. I cared about my empire profoundly, yet I understood I could not control every outcome. I engaged fully with my duties while remaining detached from the praise or criticism my efforts might bring. This detachment did not make me cold. It made me free to love more purely. The confused mind believes detachment means not caring. The wise mind knows detachment means caring without suffering. When you detach from outcomes, you do not stop working toward outcomes. When you detach from others' opinions, you do not stop considering others' feelings. When you detach from results, you do not stop striving for excellence. Here's what most people don't understand about detachment. It increases your effectiveness, rather than decreasing it. The actor who is detached from the audience's response gives a better performance than the actor who is desperate for approval. The athlete who is detached from winning plays better than the athlete who is paralyzed by the fear of losing. Attachment creates suffering because it makes your peace dependent on external conditions. When you are attached to specific outcomes, you suffer when those outcomes do not materialize. When you are attached to others' behavior, you suffer when they behave differently than you prefer. When you are attached to your possessions, you suffer when you lose them or fear losing them. Detachment creates freedom because it makes your peace independent of external conditions. You can work toward goals without needing to achieve them. You can love people without needing to control them. You can enjoy possessions without being possessed by them. You can engage fully with life without being enslaved by life. Practice holding things lightly. Work toward your career goals with dedication, but without desperation. Build relationships with love, but without neediness. Pursue your dreams with passion, but without attachment to specific timelines or outcomes. Give your best effort to everything. While expecting nothing in return, the detached parent loves their children without trying to control their choices. The detached entrepreneur builds their business without basing their identity on its success. The detached artist creates their work without requiring others to appreciate it. They engage fully while holding lightly. This does not mean becoming passive. This does not mean lowering your standards. This does not mean caring less about outcomes. This means engaging with outcomes while not being enslaved by them. This means caring about results while not being devastated by disappointing results. When you detach from the need for others' approval, you can speak more honestly. When you detach from the fear of failure, you can take bigger risks. When you detach from the requirement for specific outcomes, you can be more creative in your approaches. Detachment liberates your authentic engagement. The attached mind says, "I must have this outcome or I will be unhappy." The detached mind says, "I prefer this outcome, but I will be fine regardless." The attached mind says, "This person must behave as I want or I will suffer." The detached mind says, "I hope this person chooses wisely, but I cannot control their choices." Detachment is not indifference, it is freedom. The indifferent person does not care about anything. The detached person cares about everything, but clings to nothing. The indifferent person withdraws from life. The detached person engages with life without being controlled by life. You can love someone completely while accepting that they may leave. You can work towards success diligently while accepting that you may fail. You can hope for the best while preparing for different outcomes. This is not pessimism. This is wisdom. This is not coldness. This is strength. The businessman who is detached from profit focuses better on providing value. The student who is detached from grades focuses better on learning. The parent who is detached from their children's choices focuses better on providing guidance. Detachment improves performance rather than hindering it. But let me ask you this. What outcomes are you so attached to that the attachment creates suffering? What people are you trying to control instead of simply loving? What possessions are you clinging to instead of simply enjoying? What results are you so desperate for that the desperation undermines your efforts? Engage fully with life while holding outcomes lightly. Love people completely while releasing control over their choices. Work toward goals passionately while accepting whatever results come. Care deeply about everything while being enslaved. By nothing, the river flows powerfully toward the ocean, but does not suffer when rocks redirect its path. The tree reaches strongly toward the sun, but does not break when winds bend its branches. The wise person engages fully with life, but does not shatter when life unfolds differently than expected. Detach from outcomes and attach to principles. Detach from others' choices and attach to your own character. Detach from possessions and attach to experiences. Detach from results and attach to efforts. This is the way of the Stoic, full engagement without emotional slavery, complete caring, without desperate clinging, total involvement, without utter dependence. Live this way and find freedom in the midst of caring. Care this way and find peace in the midst of engagement. You are going to die. This is not a threat, it is a fact. This is not pessimism, it is realism. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to liberate you. The man who remembers his mortality lives with urgency, courage, and clarity. The man who forgets his mortality lives with procrastination, cowardice, and confusion. I carried this truth with me every day I ruled Rome. Not to fill my heart with fear, but to fill my actions with purpose. When I remembered that my time was limited, I stopped wasting it on petty concerns. When I remembered that my breath was numbered, I stopped holding back words worth speaking. When I remembered that my days were finite, I stopped delaying decisions worth making. Death is not your enemy. Ignorance of death is your enemy. Death is not what weakens you. Forgetting death is what weakens you. Death is not what steals your life. Living as if you were immortal is what steals your life. The person who pretends death will never come wastes the life they currently have. Here's what most people don't understand about mortality. Remembering it does not make you morbid, it makes you focused. Acknowledging it does not make you fearful, it makes you brave. Accepting it does not make you sad, it makes you grateful. Death is the teacher that shows you what truly matters and what truly does not. When you remember that your time is limited, you stop spending it on activities that serve no purpose. When you remember that your energy is finite, you stop wasting it on people who drain it without return. When you remember that your attention is precious, You stop giving it to distractions that add nothing to your life. Most people live as if they have unlimited time. They postpone important conversations until later. They delay meaningful projects until tomorrow. They avoid difficult decisions until circumstances force them. They act as if time is renewable when it is the most non-renewable resource they possess, but you are not promised tomorrow. You are not guaranteed next year. You are not assured of old age. The only moment you can be certain of is this moment. The only breath you can count on is this breath. The only day you truly have is today. Live accordingly. Practice remembering your mortality daily, not to become obsessed with death, but to become focused on life. Ask yourself, if I had only 1 year to live, would I continue doing what I am doing today? If the answer is no, stop doing it. Ask yourself, if this were my last conversation with this person, what would I say? Then say it. The knowledge of death strips away everything superficial and reveals what remains essential. Your reputation matters less when you remember it will not outlast your body. Others' opinions matter less when you remember both you and they will soon be forgotten. Temporary setbacks matter less when you remember that everything is temporary. Death equalizes all. The emperor and the slave meet the same end. The wealthy and the poor face the same fate. The famous and the unknown encounter the same destination. This equality should humble your pride and calm your envy. In the face of mortality, all human distinctions become arbitrary. When you remember that everyone you know will die, you treat them with more kindness. When you remember that everything you own will be left behind, you hold possessions more lightly. When you remember that all your achievements will be forgotten, you focus on achievements that satisfy your soul, rather than your ego. Use the thought of death as a filter for your choices. Will this matter when I am dying? Will this concern occupy my thoughts on my deathbed? Will this worry seem important when I am taking my final breaths? Most of what consumes your mental energy will fail this test. Eliminate it and focus on what passes. The dying person wishes they had worried less and loved more. They wish they had spent less time accumulating and more time experiencing. They wish they had been more authentic and less concerned with others' opinions. They wish they had taken more risks and played it safe less often. Learn from their regrets before they become your regrets. Death is not the opposite of life. It is the deadline that gives life meaning. Without death, there would be no urgency to grow. Without mortality, there would be no pressure to love. Without finite time, there would be no reason to choose carefully. Death does not diminish life. It defines life. When you remember your mortality, small problems shrink to their proper size. Traffic jams become minor inconveniences rather than major disasters. Social slights become passing moments rather than lasting wounds. Career setbacks become temporary challenges rather than permanent defeats. Perspective is the gift that mortality brings. But let me ask you this. How are you living differently because you know you will die? What are you postponing that you should pursue immediately? What conversations are you avoiding that you should have today? What experiences are you delaying that you should embrace now? What risks are you not taking because you act as if you have unlimited time? Remember death not to become morbid, but to become motivated. Remember mortality not to become fearful, but to become focused. Remember the finite nature of life not to become paralyzed, but to become purposeful. You will die, but you are not dead yet. You have limited time, but you still have time. Your days are numbered, but today is still yours to use. Death will come, but life is here now. Live with the urgency that mortality demands. Love with the intensity that finite time requires. Choose with the wisdom that limited options provides. Act with the courage that temporary existence inspires. Memento mori, remember you must die. Then live like someone who knows their time matters. No matter the crown or the chains, freedom is internal. The Stoic carries peace into every storm, dignity into every humiliation, and strength into every weakness. External circumstances may change, but the Stoic's center remains unmoved. This is the final lesson. You can be free in any situation, because freedom is not a place you go, it is a way you think. I sat on the throne of the most powerful empire in history, yet I was no more free than the slave who commanded his own thoughts. I wielded authority over millions, yet I had no more power than the prisoner who controlled his own responses. I possessed vast wealth, yet I was no richer than the poor man who needed nothing. True freedom has nothing to do with external conditions and everything to do with internal mastery. The Stoic walks into the palace without being corrupted by luxury. The Stoic walks into prison without being broken by confinement. The Stoic walks into poverty without being diminished by lack. The Stoic walks into wealth without being enslaved by abundance. In every room, in every circumstance, in every condition, the Stoic remains free because freedom travels within them. Here's what most people don't understand about true freedom. It is not the absence of limitations. It is the transcendence of limitations. It is not the elimination of problems. It is the mastery of your response to problems. It is not the control of external conditions. It is the sovereignty over internal conditions. The man who can only be happy in perfect circumstances is not free. He is dependent. The woman who can only be peaceful when everything goes her way is not liberated. She is enslaved. The person who can only be strong when supported by others is not powerful. They are weak. True freedom requires no external conditions except the condition of your own mind. You have learned that pain is not the enemy. Attachment is. You have learned that anger is a cage you build yourself. You have learned that wanting less leads to living more. You have learned that stillness is power, that responsibility is liberation, that expectations are chains. You have learned that the present is the only place you can be free, and that death gives life meaning. Now understand this. These are not separate lessons. They are parts of one truth. Freedom is not something you achieve once and keep forever. Freedom is something you choose in each moment, in each breath, in each response. The Stoic life is not a destination you reach. It is a path you walk daily. Every morning you choose freedom or slavery. Every interaction you choose dignity or reactive emotion. Every challenge you choose growth or complaint. Every setback you choose learning or blame. Every moment you choose the Stoic response or the untrained response. Freedom is built one choice at a time. The Stoic does not claim perfection. The Stoic claims intention. We do not promise to never feel anger. We promise to not be controlled by anger. We do not vow to never experience pain. We vow to not multiply pain with resistance. We do not pledge to never make mistakes. We pledge to learn from every mistake. When you leave this teaching, you will face the same world you faced before. The same difficult people will still be difficult. The same challenging circumstances will still be challenging. The same unfair realities will still be unfair. But you will face them as a different person, a person who understands that external conditions have no power over internal freedom. Practice these principles not because they are easy, but because they work. Apply these teachings not because they feel natural, but because they create the life you want to live. Embrace this philosophy not because it promises comfort, but because it delivers strength. The Stoic path is not the easiest path. It is the most effective path. It does not promise that life will become simple. It promises that you will become capable of handling life's complexity. It does not guarantee that suffering will end. It guarantees that you will not multiply your suffering. With resistance, you will fail at these practices sometimes. You will react when you meant to respond. You will resist when you meant to accept. You will blame when you meant to take responsibility. This is part of the training, not evidence of the training's failure. The Stoic gets back up, examines what happened, learns from it, and continues forward. But let me ask you this final question. Who will you be when you leave this teaching? Will you return to your old patterns of reaction and resistance? Will you fall back into the slavery of needing external conditions to change before you can be free? Or will you carry these principles into your daily life and build the unshakable freedom that belongs to the Stoic? The choice, as always, is yours. The power, as always, is within you. The freedom, as always, awaits your decision to claim it. You already have what it takes. You have a mind that can choose its thoughts. You have the ability to control your responses. You have the power to accept what you cannot change and change what you can. You have everything necessary to live with the dignity, peace, and freedom of the Stoic. The emperor's crown does not make the man. The slave's chains do not break the man. The rich man's gold does not free the man. The poor man's lack does not imprison the man. Only the man's mind can enslave him or liberate him. Walk free into every room. Carry peace into every storm. Bring dignity into every situation. This is the way of the Stoic. This is the path to true freedom. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.